at exactly 124 minutes and 44 seconds into a World Cup knockout match. A single,
Literally microscopic.
right, a single microscopic touch captured on a super slow-motion camera completely erased an entire nation's 52-year dream. Today, we're looking at how technology, psychology, and, well, just sheer desperation collided to push two massive tournament favorites to the absolute brink. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me. I mean, it's a fascinating topic.
Oh, for sure. We were exploring a phenomenon that completely upended the expectations of fans worldwide during the round of 32 at the 2026 World Cup. We're talking about Belgium and England, two heavyweights who found themselves staring directly into the abyss of early elimination.
Staring into the abyss and realizing their traditional tactics were completely useless. The gap between the so-called footballing royalty and the highly organized underdogs, it's shrunk to almost zero.
Yeah, it really has. So to figure out how these massive upsets were nearly realized and how these giants ultimately survived, we've pulled from a wide array of sources for you.
Right, a really good mix of perspectives.
Exactly. We're dissecting official match reports from FIFA and The Guardian, expert tactical breakdowns from SportsMole and Fox Sports, and, of course, the raw, unfiltered arguments happening across Reddit and social media.
Because we aren't here to just read off a scoreboard. You already know who won.
Right. You watch the games. We are unpacking the why, the psychology of momentum, the cognitive trap of a two-goal lead, and the intense controversy surrounding modern VAR.
It really requires looking past the surface narrative of, a plucky underdog played well. We need to examine the spatial reality of the pitch, the behavioral economics of how teams react under pressure.
Yeah, the mental game.
Exactly, and how fear can physically alter a team's formation in real time.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the sheer shock of what happened at Seattle Stadium. Belgium versus Senegal. If you were watching this match for the first 85 minutes, you weren't just watching an upset.
No, it was a tactical dismantling.
It really was. Senegal was up 2-0, and they were absolutely suffocating Belgium.
Structurally, Senegal's midfield was a vice. I mean, they compressed all the space that Kevin De Bruyne usually exploits. They played with a high line, forcing Belgium into these rushed, low percentage passes.
Right.
And the context is vital here. This wasn't some fluke advantage. Senegal dictated the terms of engagement.
And Ismail Assar was, playing like a man possessed. He hits the post twice in the opening minutes, completely terrifying the Belgian backline.
Just relentless pressure.
Yeah, and then he creates the absolute chaos in the box that allows Habib Diarra to smash home the opener on a rebound. But the second, wow, that's where you really start to question everything you know about these two squads.
Oh, that pass.
Moussa Niakhaté launches this stunning pinpoint long pass from deep in his own half. Sarr brings it down with his chest in full stride, completely breaking the defensive line, and just volleys it past Thibaut Courtois.
It was clinical. It really was. And Belgium just looked entirely devoid of answers.
They looked paralyzed, which makes the post-match comments from Belgium's manager, Rudy Garcia, so fascinating from a psychological standpoint.
Right, after they somehow survived.
Exactly. After they survived, Garcia went to the press and claimed that Senegal made a, quote, serious mistake by trying to protect their 2-0 lead.
Which is quite the claim.
Right. He argued that in the final 10 minutes, Senegal abandoned the proactive tactical structure that got them the lead in the first place, and instead, they just sat back. He essentially blamed Senegal's defensive mindset for handing Belgium the space and confidence to attack.
Well, it's interesting because
I just have to push back on Garcia's narrative here, because it feels a lot like a manager trying to take credit for a momentum shift he didn't actually orchestrate.
yeah, you could definitely see it that way.
If we look at the fan analysis, especially on Reddit, they are tearing this quote apart. It's a classic case of hindsight bias. A user named Lost Parasite pointed out that if Senegal had kept their high press, kept pushing for a third goal with 10 minutes left, and got caught on a counterattack,
every pundit in the world would be calling them incredibly naive.
Exactly. For lacking game management.
It's the ultimate damned if you do scenario for an underdog.
It totally is. It's like a gambler who just hit the jackpot at the roulette table. The immediate overriding human instinct is to pull your chips off the table and protect your winnings. You stop taking risks.
Right, or in a high-stakes business negotiation, if you secure the exact contract terms you want, you don't keep aggressively pitching. You try to close the deal and defend your position.
Exactly. So, is it really a serious tactical mistake by Senegal, or is it just fundamental human nature to physically drop deeper when a desperate, star-studded team starts throwing the kitchen sink at you.
Well, we have to validate both sides here. That cognitive shift is what behavioral economists call loss aversion. The pain of losing something you have is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining it.
Wow, twice as powerful.
Yeah. So Senegal started playing not to lose rather than playing to win. But tactically, that mental shift has physical consequences on the pitch.
Right, parking the bus.
Exactly. When fans say a team parked the bus, what that means structurally is a team compressing all 11 players into their own final third. That automatically surrenders the midfield.
Oh, I see.
So suddenly, a player like De Bruyne, who was suffocated for 85 minutes, now has an extra 2 seconds on the ball. He has an extra 10 yards of space to look up and pick a pass.
But the sources also highlight that dropping into a low block isn't inherently a flawed strategy, right?
Not at all. Look at Mexico's match against Ecuador earlier in this very tournament. Mexico took a lead, consciously dropped into a deep defensive block, absorbed wave after wave of pressure, and comfortably saw out the game.
So it can work?
Yes, the strategy of sitting deep is sound. It's the execution under duress that matters. Senegal lost concentration for just a fraction of a second, and when you surrender the midfield to a team with Belgium's technical quality, any lapse in concentration is fatal.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
What actually snapped Belgium out of their paralysis? Because for 85 minutes, there was no master stroke from the bench.
No, nothing tactical at all.
According to the reporting, the catalyst was deeply, uncomfortably personal. During a second-half hydration break, a massive shouting match erupted between Yuri Tielemans and Leandro Trossard.
The reports describe it as incredibly volatile. Romelu Lukaku and Nico Raskin literally had to step in and physically separate their own teammates on the touchline.
That's wild.
I mean, this is a team down 2-0, facing immense national embarrassment, and they are turning on each other.
It reminds me of those completely dysfunctional family Thanksgiving dinners.
Gosh, yeah.
You know the ones. The tension is unbearable for hours, everyone is passive-aggressive, and then finally, an ugly argument breaks out over the turkey. People yell, feelings are hurt, but weirdly, it clears the air.
The suppressed anxiety is gone.
Right. And the rest of the night is actually fine. Rudy Garcia leaned right into this. He told the press, quote, "The worst thing is not to say things and die." He viewed that conflict as the essential grit they were missing.
There is profound truth to that. Passive acceptance is the death of a team in knockout football. That raw, unfiltered conflict acted as a psychological defibrillator. It shocked them back to life.
I like that analogy.
But we also have to recognize how heavily momentum relies on razor-thin margins. Before the comeback even starts, there is a hinge point in the 84th minute that changes the universe for Belgium.
Oh, the Courtois save.
Yes, Thibaut Courtois is forced into a massive, sprawling, one-on-one save against Sadio Mane. If Mane scores there, it's 3-0.
Game over.
The argument doesn't matter. The grit doesn't matter. The game is over.
But Courtois makes the save. And that physical act of survival seems to trigger the avalanche. Suddenly, the substitutions click into place. Lukaku, who came on at halftime, finds the back of the net in the 86th minute off a brilliant cross from Thomas Meunier. It's 2-1.
You can just feel the oxygen get sucked out of the stadium for the Senegalese fans. The momentum shift is almost violent.
It really is a visceral reaction. Senegal starts looking nervously at the stadium clock, while Belgium suddenly remembers they are, one of the most talented squads on earth.
And just 3 minutes later, in the 89th minute, the equalizer arrives through the most poetic channel possible.
Trossard.
Exactly. Trossard, the exact player Tielemans was ready to brawl us on the sideline 20 minutes earlier, whips in a devastating cross.
You can't write this stuff.
Tielemans charges into the box, beats the keeper Mori Diaw, gets entirely sandwiched between two massive Senegalese defenders, Niakate and Jacobs, and still manages to head the ball into the net. 2-2.
Insane.
And if we pull the lens back and look at the FIFA key stats for this squad, there's a fascinating historical precedent here. This specific generation of Belgian players possesses a collective memory of survival.
Wait, really? When else did this happen?
Well, this is the second time they have erased a 2-0 World Cup knockout deficit. The first was their legendary 2018 match against Japan.
Oh, of course. I remember that.
Yeah, and the core of this current team, Tielemans, Courtois, Meunier, Lukaku, De Bruyne, they were all on the pitch for that 2018 comeback. When you have lived through that specific trauma and survived, you don't panic when you face it again. You know the opponent's armor can be pierced.
Right. They had the blueprint for survival. Which brings us to the climax, and perhaps the most hotly debated moment of the entire tournament. We are deep into extra time. Players can barely walk. Dodi Lukubakio blasts a shot off the crossbar for Belgium. And then we hit 124 minutes and 44 seconds.
The latest goal ever recorded in the history of the World Cup, but the goal itself is entirely secondary to the mechanism that awarded it.
Yeah, it stems from Senegal's Lamine Camara clipping Tielemans inside the penalty area. Initially, play continues, but then the referee is summoned to the video review monitor.
The dreaded VAR monitor.
Yeah. He watches the replay, walks back onto the pitch, and awards Belgium a penalty. Now, looking at the sources across the spectrum, we have to present this impartially because this single decision effectively detonated online. The debate is highly emotionally charged and gets to the very core of how technology interacts with the sport.
It really does. On the pro-Senegal side of the aisle, the frustration is palpable. You have massive swaths of fans calling it a, quote, robbery in broad daylight.
Which is strong language.
Yeah, and the prevailing argument on platforms like Reddit is that Tielemans engineered the contact. The claim is that he jumped from behind the defender, unnaturally putting his foot into the path of Kamara's clearing motion, specifically to fish for a penalty.
To draw the foul on purpose.
Exactly. Pundit Craig Forrest echoed this sentiment on the broadcast, calling the decision, quote, really, really harsh on Senegal, and pointing out that Senegal has found themselves on the wrong end of several borderline calls recently.
But then you have the pro-penalty camp. Fans who argue that while it might feel incredibly cruel given the context of the game, by the strict technical letter of the law, a foul occurred.
Right, the letter of the law.
Former striker Dion Dublin was completely uncompromising on this point in his analysis. His take was incredibly simple. He said, there is definitely contact. If a defender strikes an attacker's foot in the box, regardless of intent, it is a penalty.
It creates a fascinating philosophical clash. You have the spirit of the game, the natural flow and physical reality of two exhausted athletes challenging for a ball colliding directly with the clinical black and white technicality of the rulebook.
It really makes you wonder, when we slow down natural human momentum to a frame-by-frame crawl on a VAR monitor, are we losing the common sense of the game?
It's a great question.
I mean, when you watch an incidental brush of a boot at 60 frames per second, it suddenly looks like a premeditated malicious strike. Are we penalizing the natural biomechanics of human movement simply because it looks dramatic in super slow motion?
That is the defining question of the VAR era. Does microscopic technology illuminate the truth, or does it distort human intent?
Wow, yeah.
But regardless of the philosophical debate, the reality on the pitch was final. The referee pointed to the spot, and the emotional toll of that finality was utterly devastating.
The scene at the stadium was pure heartbreak. You have Senegal's Pay the Assist literally collapsing onto the penalty spot, putting his body on the grass to try and delay the kick, trying to ice the kicker.
Just absolute desperation.
Lamine Camara, the young player who gave away the foul, is openly weeping. And on the Belgian side, the psychological weight is equally immense. Lukaku, the veteran striker who normally takes these high-pressure kicks and who later admitted to the press that he's been going through a, quote, tough time mentally.
He steps away.
He physically hands the ball to Tielemans.
That transfer of responsibility is a massive moment of vulnerability and trust.
Tielemans steps up, ignores the chaos, and slots it home. 3-2, the whistle blows. Senegal goes home. Belgium survives.
And that structural collapse, a heavily favored giant, paralyzed by an organized underdog, only to be saved by a late surge of individual heroism, wasn't unique to Seattle.
No, it wasn't.
The exact same psychological trap swallowed England on the other side of the country in Atlanta?
The narrative parallels between Belgium and England in this round are just uncanny. To understand the gravity of the England match, you have to look at the contrast in pressure.
The stakes were totally different for both teams.
Right. On one side, you have the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is a pure, unadulterated Cinderella run. It is their first World Cup appearance in 52 years.
52 years.
Before stepping onto the pitch in this tournament, they had never won a World Cup match. They had never even scored a World Cup goal. They were playing with absolute freedom, riding a wave of national euphoria, completely anchored by their star forward, Jan Wissa.
Conversely, you have England. The players wearing that shirt aren't just playing against 11 men from DR Congo. They're playing against the suffocating psychological burden of a 60-year trophy drought.
The weight of history.
Exactly. Every missed pass, every defensive lapse carries the weight of decades of national disappointment.
And early in the match, that burden almost crushed them. DR Congo strikes first, Brian Sapanga exploits the defensive flank manned by DJ Spence. He drives into the box, hits a low, hard shot, and beats goalkeeper Jordan Pickford at the near post.
Suddenly, the giant is bleeding.
Yeah, and DR Congo didn't immediately retreat into a defensive shell like Senegal did.
No, they kept applying pressure. Wissa found space in the box and hit the outside of the post from point-blank range. They were millimeters away from going up 2-0 and effectively ending England's tournament right there.
Oh man, you could visibly see the panic setting in for the English squad.
The frustration was bleeding into their discipline. Jude Bellingham, normally so composed, makes a rash lunge and picks up a yellow card.
Uncharacteristic for him.
Very. Shortly after, during their own hydration break, Bellingham is caught on camera in a heated, highly animated argument with his manager, Thomas Tuchel.
The system was clearly failing. And all the while, DR Congo's goalkeeper, Lyle Mpazi, is putting on a clinic, making these acrobatic reaction saves that seem to defy logic.
But this is where the parallel with Belgium becomes so stark. When tactical systems fail against a low-block defense, when the passing lanes disappear and the underdog is playing the game of their lives, you can no longer rely on the whiteboard.
Right, the X's and O's don't matter anymore.
You have to rely on the sheer individual brilliance of your superstars. Belgium had Tielemans and Lukaku. England had Harry Kane.
In the 75th minute, the rescue act begins. Kane finally finds a sliver of space in the box and beats Mpazi with a powerful downward header, perfectly assisted by substitute Anthony Gordon.
The relief in that stadium was palpable.
Oh, I bet. But they still need a winner. And in the 86th minute, Kane receives the ball on the edge of the area and simply unleashes a devastating drive into the roof of the net. It's his 84th international goal. He drags his nation over the finish line by sheer force of will.
And Kane's post-match comments provide a fascinating window into the mindset required to survive those specific moments.
What did he say?
Well, he wasn't discussing tactical adjustments or formation changes. He was talking about cognitive endurance.
He used this specific phrase, pounding the rock. He told the press, quote, "It was just about pounding the rock, keep pounding the rock, and our moments will come."
Such a great quote.
That mentality is incredibly revealing. When your sophisticated tactics fall apart, when the crowd is turning on you and the entire world expects you to choke under the pressure, survival isn't about outsmarting the opponent. It's about relentless, repetitive, mechanical effort.
Just wearing them down.
It's hitting the wall over and over again until a microscopic crack finally appears.
It is the psychological endurance to completely reject the reality of a losing scenario, even when the clock, the momentum, and the crowd are entirely against you. Both Belgium and England demonstrated that raw endurance, but, well, it came at the cost of exposing deep structural flaws in their game models.
So what do we take away from this deep dive? Both of these traditional powerhouses survived the abyss. Belgium advances to face the USA, and England moves on to play Mexico. The scorelines will say they won.
But the tape shows that they were completely outmaneuvered for vast stretches of these games.
Right. They survived, but the aura of invincibility is entirely gone. Senegal and DR Congo may be going home, but they provided a masterclass to the rest of the world.
They proved that rigid tactical discipline, cohesive spatial awareness, and a total lack of fear can dismantle the most expensive rosters on the planet. They basically laid out the blueprint for how to topple an empire.
Which leaves us with a fascinating, lingering question for you to ponder long after you finish listening to this deep dive.
Right. We are seeing the gaps in technical quality and tactical sophistication close at an astonishing rate between traditional footballing superpowers and emerging underdog nations. So are we witnessing the definitive end of the golden generation era in international sports? Will future global tournaments be dominated not by the nations with the most star-studded, technically gifted academies, but by the squads with the most unbreakable collective psychological resilience?
It really makes you evaluate what actually constitutes a winning team in the modern era. The next time you see a heavy favorite sitting on a 2-0 lead with 5 minutes left on the clock, you might not be so quick to assume the game is over. Because as we've seen, in the agonizing heat of knockout football, a lead is only as strong as the psychology of the 11 players trying to defend it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the 2026 World Cup. We'll catch you next time.